Obviously, I've been following both of your work for some time now, actually, and there's been an increase in the content surrounding the remote care and the audiology industry naturally very recently. I think what's been actually quite refreshing to see is the speed in which a number of the manufacturers have really innovated and reacted to this COVID-19 crisis that we're seeing. Remote care has now arguably actually become one of the more important aspects of the industry. Abram, you created a really informative brand comparison document last week on remote care services from the manufacturers. Now, what do you feel are the basic requirements for a thorough remote care service? And also, would you mind expanding on what some of the manufacturers currently have on offer?
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to do that. And thank you for mentioning that document. I know it's been circulating quite a bit on LinkedIn and elsewhere. So right now in our sheet, we've got Signia, Phonak, Widex, Starkey, Resound, Oticon, and I've also thrown in Beltone in there, which Beltone is one of our manufacturing partners at the moment on our site. So we wanted to make sure to get them on the list. Although Beltone and Resound, as you probably are aware, do share technology. So a lot of what you're seeing on the sheet between Beltone and Resound is the same. So what we've done is we've broken down, sort of remote care across a few different dimensions. We've got the ability for the hearing aid to be fine-tuned. We've got communication ability, so that's going to encompass things like, whether it's video and audio support, whether it's just chat support. Often the apps that are chat support are going to be more of a support ticketing system. Then we've got fitting support, and that's going to be like feedback measurement, in situ audiometry. Currently, I have Resound, Beltone able to do that on iOS. And then I've got Signia able to do that, just feedback measurement, not the in situ audiometry. And then Widex can actually support feedback measurement in situ audiometry across both Android and iOS, which is pretty cool. And I bring that one up specifically because that is something that audiologists are really looking for right now. They're looking for the full battery. What they need is they need a product that they can control fully from afar. And being able to do the feedback measurement test is kind of critical, because without that, if you're trying to accomplish sort of a new fitting, or let's say it's a replacement fitting for somebody who's lost their hearing aids, needs a replacement, it's really important that you're able to perform that feedback measurement test so that they don't get the squealing and everything in their ears with those new hearing aids. And then we've got customer feedback, which I've included things like satisfaction surveys on the app, and pretty much across the board, we've got manufacturers able to take some kind of satisfaction measure from the patient, so they're able to rate changes that are made to their hearing aids remotely. I don't have Widex and Oticon having anything like that presently. But Widex and Oticon are kind of unique in that they have apps that are not universal, so they're specifically remote care apps, whereas all the other manufacturers have sort of bundled in features of remote care into their typical apps. So for example, the MyPhonak app or the Signia app, which would be used as a remote control, now also has remote care functionality. So I'm not going to go on record saying that Widex and Oticon don't have some sort of satisfaction survey built into their normal apps. And then I've got other things in there, sort of checking battery charge, whether the HCP can check the battery charge from afar, and look at other stats like wearing time stats and data logging. I've got another line in there that's about accessory, whether an accessory is required. I'll stop going through all this. I'll let you guys, anybody who wants to come look at the sheet. There's a lot of detail here, but answering your question, I think it's important. Video calling is really critical at the moment. For video calling, I think we are we've got some holes. I know Starkey doesn't currently have a video support, although I'm sure that that could be coupled with like a Zoom call like we're doing right now. And then Resound Beltone currently only support iOS on video calling, but I know they're going to be adding that. And then I think the other thing is full, the full adjustment capability. So going back to what I was talking about earlier, having the ability to do the feedback measurement, the in situ audiometry, but then also having the full control panel of what an audiologist might do if they need to adjust the hearing aids in terms of, all the different frequencies, whether they're able to adjust compression, whether they're able to create new program settings. And it does look like most of the manufacturers have support for full fine tuning at this stage, like looking across. And some of them, they're able to do that while they're in a video call, like Signia, Phonak, Widex, Resound. And then in other ones, they're able to do full fine tuning like Starkey. You can do full fine tuning, but it's more in the asynchronous sort of ticket system, sort of support ticket system. So that's all. Oh, and then Signia's got kind of both, right? So I think Signia, Resound, Beltone, they've got an asynchronous system where it's a support ticket system, or they can do a video system. So that's kind of my rundown of the sheet and what I think is important to look for in it. And as well on the sheet, I put a list of all the places you can links to all the download sites and the current customer reviews, which unfortunately I can't say any of the manufacturers are faring really well at the moment. It's all in like the 2 and 3 star out of 5.
Yeah.
iOS and Android.
Just to interject, Abrams. Sorry. Why do you think that is? Why do you think they're getting the 2 and 3 stars and not hitting the 4 and 5s?
I think part of it is that people. Well, I will say this. There's like I said earlier, you've got some that are remote care only, and some that are sort of bundled apps. So in the case of the bundled apps, I'm going to say it's probably not the remote care functionality that's driving those reviews. Right. I think that's more of a global review of the app, and yes. I want to say that a lot of people take out their frustrations with their hearing aids on their app review. So if somebody's not hearing well and they're like messing with the controls and they're just not hearing better no matter what they do with the controls, they're going to go, 1 star, this app, is no good. And I think that's a bit unfair on the manufacturers, because typically, when someone's reviewing an app, they're talking about the user experience and, how stable it is. I know Bluetooth connectivity is probably another place where people are taking out their frustrations on the app review, right? Now, in the case of, app reviews for the remote care only ones, so Widex has no reviews yet on their remote care app on Android. On iOS, they had 4 reviews, which I'm going to say is, not really a critical mass to really establish how successful this is. And then the other one that was remote care only was Oticons. They've got 8 reviews on iOS and 15 on Android, and they're sitting at like 3.5 stars on both, which is actually better than most of the bundled apps are getting right now. So, I do think that over time, those that have disentangled their remote care apps from their remote control apps might actually have a greater potential to see higher ratings. Ironically.
That makes complete sense. And Jeff, you've also written some really interesting articles in the last few weeks about the different manufacturers offering these remote care services. I'm really keen to hear your thoughts on what you think are the basic requirements for a thorough remote care service.
I think that I think the focus on remote care started a couple of years ago, and I think that was driven obviously by manufacturers. Okay, I think the initial professional reaction to it was one of suspicion. Okay, and in fact, the initial professional appetite for it was practically nil. And I think that continued until just recently. In essence, most professionals didn't offer it. They didn't include it in their services. They didn't offer it. They didn't really understand it, and they didn't know what to do with it. I think that this crisis has been the mother of all invention, and all of a sudden the profession is now particularly interested in how they will offer remote services and how they will include it in their service, mainly because of necessity, and that's it. the manufacturers were quick to respond to that increase in appetite, and I think in essence they've responded, relatively well. Especially Resound. Resound was pretty quick to go with the full live platform. I know that in essence they've had it for a while, but it hasn't been something that they've run with. Now they have, and it makes perfect sense for them to do that. I'd echo what Abram has said. In order for any remote system to be effective for us as a clinician, we'd have to be able to do, feedback management, in situ audiometry, and have, I suppose, full access to the fine-tuning ability. I think the reason why most of the manufacturers didn't include that and didn't necessarily look at that in their roadmap originally was because of the suspicion of the profession. In essence, if you have those things in your remote fitting software, you could technically, theoretically, sell hearing aids online and fit them to people in their own home. And I think that manufacturers have constantly, as long as I'm in the business, manufacturers have constantly walked what they perceive as very fine lines because of basically the attitude of the profession. So, I think that those things will come, and they'll come quickly across most of the manufacturers. Up until now, the manufacturers probably would have felt that it wasn't necessarily politically correct to offer them in their remote service. Obviously, as I said, necessity is the mother of invention, and therefore it's what they need right now. I think, though, the most interesting thing will be not just remote fitting and remote fine-tuning and what happens with that as we move forward, but also what will happen within the remote testing world and how that will evolve. Because this problem isn't going to go away. We're not going to return to normal or any sense of normalcy within, I don't know, possibly 18 months, possibly 24 months. Nobody knows. And in order for us to continue to offer hearing care, we need a combination of, I suppose, risk management and completely new strategies that don't exist right now. So I think it'll be interesting to see what evolves over the next couple of months.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And when the situation does die down, as you say, that could be 18 to 24 months. But when we do revert back to, normal practice again, how relevant and important do you see remote care still being? Do you think that this has perhaps changed audiology for good?
I think so. So I talked to somebody recently about this, and my own thoughts are short-term changes don't stick. So this crisis isn't like a bad bank holiday weekend. This crisis is going to go on for quite a long time. Our behavior will change or will need to be changed for quite a long time. And that will, in essence, produce a new normal. And because it will go on for so long, and because of the underlying stress of this situation, this is like an apocalyptic situation, which brings an underlying stress, right? Because of that, because of the new things we're doing, because of the new things that we're learning, I think they will become an ingrained habit. And while I do, and always have felt that there is always a need for face-to-face, in-person consultation during the period that you're with a customer or during the customer journey. I think that more and more of our customers, more and more consumers will actually see that as something that is a rare occurrence. So I think we're looking at the new normal, and the new normal will be very different than the old normal. I think it depends on how long it goes on for. The longer it goes on, the more ingrained the habits will become, and therefore the reason to change back will become less and less.
Yeah, absolutely. Some really interesting psychology on that point as well. And Abrams, similarly, with the United States market, do you see that this becoming the new norm, an increase in remote care and telecare services?
I'm kind of on the fence about it because I've talked to a lot of audiologists who are trying to work within this new framework, and they're trying to figure out how do I do diagnostics, for example, or how do I do like a minimum viable diagnostic, and I know that there's some new solutions coming to the fore, like the HearX sort of remote otoscope, and then there's Clementine, another product that's come on the scene lately, where they have a little test box that they can send to the consumer. You can perform a remote hearing check with air conduction. No bone conduction, I don't think at present, although I do think there are some solutions out there that have bone. And then it also comes with an otoscope that you can sort of, counsel the patient on inserting into their ear and that sort of thing. So, I mean, the first problem, of course, is like that technology is not diagnostic in nature. You're not going to get the same result that you would if you had someone in your clinic and you were placing the transducers yourself, looking in the ear yourself. You are going to get an inherently better test. And then you move to the world of hearing aids, right? And what I've heard, like just as an example, I'm sure you guys all know Dr. Cliff, the YouTube star, right?
Yeah, very familiar with quite a lot of his videos. Yeah.
So he's really hitting the ground running here, which I absolutely love. He's trying to figure all this out. He's been talking to Clementine. He's planning on sending boxes out, and he's been doing a lot of remote appointments. And he's saying that he needs so much more time for just the simplest things, just the simplest, like the type of thing that would take him, 15, 20 minutes in a session, across the desk. Now he's got somebody on the phone and on a video, and it's like an hour or 2 hours to give the same level of training, because it's like, hold the phone over there, show me this, show me that. Everything is like kind of baby steps through the video camera. So I think, to answer your question, I think, we won't be ushering in a new era of convenience in a way. In a way, it is a new era of convenience in the sense that, people can stay home, they don't have to travel, this, that, and the other thing. But for the clinician whose time is money, it's not a new era of convenience, and it's actually a new era of kind of frustration, I think, with things that used to be really simple and easy to do face to face becoming more laborious and more time consuming. So I don't think the incentive, I don't think the technology is going to change that drastically in the next 18 to 24 months, that we're going to see this, this inefficiency disappear. So I think the incentive on the clinical side is going to be to kind of return to the old normal. And in a way, I think those patients who have experienced both face-to-face and remote care are probably still mostly going to have a preference for face-to-face care. But the good thing that I think is going to come out of this is we're going to establish the technologies. We're going to establish the procedures, the booking systems, the payment systems, everything that's needed to handle the remote care going forward, so that segment of the market, which I do believe will grow, those people that do want the convenience of at-home care, or those, as we know, people are purchasing hearing aids online today. Direct-to-consumer sites are flourishing. I don't think anyone has a really good finger on the pulse of like how much those companies are growing, how much that channel has grown in the last, however many years it's been around. But I think it's important for audiologists to be able to cater to that market, as that channel, right, as it grows. At the same time, providing the face-to-face care that's very efficient for them to provide, where they are going to make good money. And like, it's almost like, to me, it's like a competitive thing of like, if you don't do anything about that channel and just kind of let it grow, with the direct-to-consumer sellers doing everything, they're eventually going to siphon away all the new market. Yeah. So, I mean, that's kind of the way I look at it is, you know, we need to be there. We need to be at the table. We need to be providing these solutions in the way that people are looking for them. But at the same time, I think face-to-face care is still going to be the bread and butter of the industry for a long time.
Yeah. Okay. I'd just like to put in on that. So there's two things. First of all, I echo what Abram was saying in relation to the need for the profession to become involved in OTC and that type of direct-to-consumer model. We need to get involved, because if we don't, they'll take away your breakfast. The second thing is, right, that in fact, I think that while he's talked about Dr. Cliff and the inefficiencies that he's had, right, those inefficiencies are easily overcome with technology. And by that I mean, if we study, because that's what we do generally, if we study what the inefficiencies are, okay, we can easily react to them. And what I would say would be, just for that, I mean, a series of videos, online videos in relation to all of those things. This is how you replace a wax guard. This is how you put a tip on. This is how you put it in your ear. This is what you do. This is what you do. It's as simple as that. I mean, those are easily integrated. And already in a lot of the apps, like the major manufacturer apps, they're already integrating those things into those apps. So it's almost like a live interactive manual. So like,
I will say in Cliff's defense that he is priming people with video, of course. You know, so he did say that, but you know, I mean, we all know those types of patients where, you know, it takes some training, right? Hands-on, you know, interactive. Sometimes the video is not enough, I guess is what I'm saying. I'm not saying it won't work with a lot of people, but I think you're right. That you will find ways to increase efficiency, and I feel like they must be doing that with like Lively, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't have any insight on how they're doing as a company, but they must be doing something like that to increase efficiency. I know, like, working with a single product, you know, having one audiologist licensed in 49 states or whatever, she must be very familiar with every problem that you can have with that product, you know. So, and I know they've got a lot of video educational materials, so they must be figuring things out that we're not figuring out, right? So I think you've got something there.
I think you've knocked you've hit the point in the head there. You know, they have gone through a process and they've learned from that process, and obviously they figured out that process and are designing processes and procedures to deal with it. And I think that that's what will happen. The other thing is that, as you said, not every patient is going to be able for this, and not every patient will be interested in this. But I think, in fact, I feel that it could be the majority of patients who would be. You know, so if you're not involved in it, and this has been my thought processes for a while, if you're not involved with something where a majority of consumers are interested, right, what you're left with is the minority of consumers who aren't interested, and they are the most difficult ones, as you've just said. They're the ones who have to show 25 times how to pay. You know, is that what we want as a profession? Do you know what I mean? Moving forward, is that what we want? Do we want all the difficult customers? Because if we don't get off our ass, that's what we're going to have.
I think you're right.